Welcome, everyone. I think we'll start and then we'll probably have a few more people joining. So yeah, let's get started. Welcome, everyone, to the webinar Selling with Empathy. I'm Lisa. I'm the event director of DMSS conference, and I'm your host today. So the inspiration of this webinar really came because I asked myself lots of times, during the last few months, how should I be doing sales? And it felt kind of wrong to be selling hard to people while obviously, other people are going through a crisis. And I think the same is true for all the platforms, if it's about writing Facebook ads copy, or is it about posting LinkedIn or cold calling? It's always the same question of how relevant is it to sell your products at the moment, and how can you maybe change the messaging so it has, it conveys more passion and empathy and relevance. So I'm very excited to have Viveka and Mark here with me today. And so we're going to explore these questions, and I'm sure they have lots of great tips for you. The webinar is brought to you by DMSS Conference. It's a digital marketing conference in Bali. It's planned for November. And DMSS is really a combination of lots of actionable workshops in PPC, SEO, CRO, funnels, sales, analytics. But also we have a lot of personal development and mindfulness seminars. Mark has been there last year, so maybe he'll tell you a bit later about it. And we'll do lots of yoga and leadership, personal development courses. So maybe if you want to join in November, then you can head over to our website, dmss.io, after the webinar. Our tickets are also refundable. So, with all the difficult situation and difficult traveling at the moment, you'll have a chance to get a refund. Before we start officially, I want to ask everyone to keep their microphone on mute. And if you have any questions, please feel free to write them in the comment box and we will answer them after the webinar. And now I want to also introduce Vivica and Mark. So Vivica van Rosen is the co-founder and chief visibility officer of Ingress, the world's largest digital sales transformation company. She's also known as LinkedIn expert. She has lots of relevant tips and tricks on her LinkedIn profile, and is also a best-selling author of lots of helpful LinkedIn books. She's often contributing to lots of publications like Forbes, Entrepreneur, Social Media Examiner. And then we have Mark Cogan. He's the Chief Revenue Officer at TaskDrive and also Techstars alumni of 2018. He's been spending 4 years in sales, in different sales and recruitment roles. And then he pivoted his career 7 years ago to focus mainly on marketing. Today, Mark works with lots of companies across multiple industries, helping them to build scalable and profitable businesses. So I'm very happy and very excited to have you both here. And with that, I'll hand over the microphone to Mark, I guess.
Hey, thank you, Lisa, for the very kind introduction. And hello, everybody. I'm really excited and looking forward to, I guess, having a conversation with Viveka and Lisa about selling and how really that you can sell without actually selling, and how right now it's even more important to lead with empathy and lead with value. So we're going to start off today with a little bit of a little bit of theory before we get into the tactics. Viveka's got lots of great tips and ninja hacks for LinkedIn, which I'm looking forward to learning from. But to begin with, we want to frame the conversation around sales and how the best way to approach things at the moment. And as we all know, a lot has changed in the last few months, not only professionally for people, but also personally. So, people are working from home, sometimes in unsuitable environments. One of my friends is a copywriter. He's working from his garden shed because he has young nieces and nephews around the house all the time. So he's renovated his shed into a little makeshift office. People are concerned about their childcare. Yeah. Because that threw a big spanner in the works for a lot of people. They may be worried about finances. They may be under a lot of stress and pressure. And unfortunately, they might also be grieving because there's been huge, losses with the coronavirus. So I think with everything going on, and Viveka, I'll hand over to you in just a second. I think it's really important to note that, doing the same thing as we did before for sales, we shouldn't be, and it just doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, 100%. And it's interesting that it's taken something like a worldwide pandemic. I kind of think we shouldn't have been selling the way we used to sell anyway. So it's always been, or it should always have been, about having empathy for your buyer and knowing their points of pain, not only work-related points of pain, but now, of course, we've got universal stressors like Mark was just talking about with childcare and dogs barking and your father walking into the middle of your webinar, all of which of course happened with me. And so we have to understand from our buyer's position, not only where they are as far as needing our product or service and not even knowing it, probably, but also, what additional stress are they under? And is there any way that we can help them with that too? Sometimes it's not, sometimes it's just lending an ear, or I'm not so sure about all the emails that are going out. The first one or two are really cool. And then every other email, especially over here in the US with all the race things going on, it got a little bit, well, markety, quite frankly. So we've got to find that balance, I think.
Yeah, and I think one of the key things to remember, and sales doesn't come naturally to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I know that you've found that through Vengroso and the transformation work that you do, and a lot of that is change management and perception management of how people perceive sales. And I think one of the most important things that I tell myself sometimes, and also when I speak to some of our customers over at Task Drive, is to, you can actually sell without selling. And once you take away the selling part of it, I think a lot of people feel more natural. They feel more comfortable in that environment. And really, it all becomes about being somebody who shows up, who can give value, and they can build their brand as a trusted advisor. Because as we know, it's a very well-known quote that people buy from those they know, like, and trust. And Viveka, you've got some words to share about how LinkedIn is a great platform for being that trusted advisor.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny. I think one of the reasons I stumbled onto LinkedIn back 14 years ago was I hated selling. I mean, ironically, coming from a digital sales transformation company, but I hated selling, right? I cold calling. The idea of cold calling, was a cold pit in my belly. And I expect people who might even have been comfortable with cold calling before now are just a little bit hesitant. And so, yeah, that's kind of why I picked up on LinkedIn. I just figured, oh, this is great. I can build my brand and start having conversations with people genuinely, and I don't ever have to pick up the phone again. Well, that's of course not true. You still want to have those conversations and those phone calls. But yeah, when it comes to LinkedIn and what we call the KLT factor, Mark just quoted my friend Bob Berg, all things being equal, people do business with people and refer people they know, like, and trust. And for us, the first step, after having a mindset, right? You've got to have the mindset that I am willing to make the effort every day to reach out to individuals, whatever social platform you want. We're very focused on the B2B world. So, LinkedIn is our platform of choice, but really on any platform that you're comfortable with, or more importantly, where your buyers are, how can I, make the time investment? And so after the mindset, then it's creating a brand, but a brand that's focused on your buyers. So many people just upload their resume or create a LinkedIn profile that's a resume, but it's really a personal branding opportunity. But more importantly than that, it's an opportunity for you to let your audience know, I'm here for you. Mark was saying that earlier. I am your trusted advocate. I am here to provide whatever information you need. And it's interesting because, before I was born, but 40, 50 years ago, when you were in sales, that's what you were. You were a trusted advocate. People reached out to you with questions about a product or service, and you educated them. And then in the 80s, 70s, and 80s and 90s, it went completely opposite, and cold calling and spamming. And we're now shifting, we're having to shift back into that position of trusted advocate. And for those of you who hate to sell, you probably love to educate. And I think Mark's going to talk about more about this, but being a source of education to your audience, that's being a source and a resource. That's how you want to set up your profile, and that's how you want to engage on LinkedIn too.
Absolutely. And we're now going to talk through 7 steps that you can go through if you're sitting here thinking, well, how do I become a trusted advisor? So we'll go through these, and Viveka and I will take it in turns, and we might just jump in and add a few bits to each other's points as well. So as Viveka said, you really have to have that mindset of giving first and not really expecting anything in return. And it's really hard to maintain that mindset, because I know from being in a sales role before, I have targets to hit. I have outbound calls that I have to make. I have a number of meetings that I have to book, and there's a quarter, I've got 3 months to do all this in, or even monthly. And it is really, really hard to have this mindset when the rest of the organization doesn't. But what I would say is, if you still, and you will be in an environment where you still have to pick up the phone and you still have to make these outbound activities. But if you come from a position of giving value with empathy and being genuinely curious about the people that you're speaking to, it will make your life a lot easier. And in fact, what I found is I had to do less calls and less volume because I was having more meaningful conversations. And those meaningful conversations turned into revenue for the company down the line. So it's really important it's hard to live by this mindset when you have these targets, but if you stick with it, it works. And these steps that we'll go through now will share some of the one strategy that you could take. And the first one comes down to really understanding your ideal customer profile and the buyer personas. And the ideal customer profiles, they're the companies that you want to sell to or want to talk to. These are companies that might be in a specific location, they might be in a specific industry, or they might be at a certain maturity. So you might not want to sell to very small startups. You might want to sell to medium-sized companies, or maybe companies that have more than 10,000 employees. So all of these different characteristics create your ideal customer profile. And then your buyer personas are the actual individuals within those target companies, within the companies that fit your ideal customer profile. Excuse me. And these are the people that are making the decision on the purchase of the solution that you're trying to sell or to talk about. And Viveka, I think you wanted to mention this about your profile needs to speak to these people, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you're creating, and I think I can share my screen. Is that correct? Yes. Let me go ahead and do that right now. Here we are. So I'm, looking at Mark's profile, right? You want people to know how you can help them. So again, it's not a resume. It's not, CRO at, you'll notice there's his job is not necessarily here anywhere, right? You've got to scroll down a little bit more to see, where he actually works and what he actually does. Mark's headline speaks to, who he helps and how he helps them. And this is just one of the things that Mark does, but everything is about, how I can help you. Do you need to, increase your visibility? Do you need to increase your credibility? Well, guess what? Podcasting is a great way to do that. And here's Mark. He can help you secure podcast interviews for if you're an author or a coach or consultant. And what does it do? It increases your brand awareness and revenue. So he's not, I'm the CRO of blah, blah, blah. It's really, how can he help you? And you'll notice he's got that, that great background image that speaks to what he does. And so, doing things like that, of course. There we go. One of the things that I'm recommending that people do right now is, instead of, talking about this is what I do, it's who do you help and how do you help them? That's basically our formula. Even our background images at Vingresso, we've got several different ones that we're using right now, but to our audience, who is a buyer, who is a modern seller, we want them to know it's okay. Your buyers are still out there and they still need you. Here's how you reach out to them. And then I've got the world's longest headline, but it starts the same way, right? Helping sales professionals do what? Create more qualified and quality conversations. And then a bunch of other stuff about me, but it still focuses on the buyer. And I think as you add resources to your profile that people can click through to, right? It's not about sales. It's about, how can I build up my lead sourcing playbooks? Where can I go to learn more about this? So all of those things you can put in the resources section. And then not only that, you can expand upon all of how you help people in this about section. So the whole thing needs to be focused on your buyer, how you help them, and I truly identifying their points of pain and then solving it. That's going to do a lot towards building what we call that KLT, that know, like, and trust. So those are just a few steps that you can take, but always, always, always making your profile a resource and focusing on your buyer.
Thank you. And some great examples. And I completely didn't realize you were going to share my LinkedIn profile there.
It looks great.
I'm glad I ticked a few boxes.
I wouldn't have if it was bad.
That's good to know. So as you study your ideal customer profiles and your personas, you will start to notice some of the things that are common with them. You'll start to see some of the patterns. And one of the key things that you want to work out is, where do they spend time online? And LinkedIn is one of the core places where a lot of business to business professionals spend time online. And that's why LinkedIn is such a great platform. And we're sharing this strategy, which is just all about LinkedIn, really. But when it comes to, knowing what to create and what content that would be of benefit to your audience, to your ideal customer profiles, a lot of people can get stuck at this point, because you might be sitting here thinking, well, I don't know, I'm not a writer, or I don't know how to create content. And the one thing that I mention to a lot of people is first of all, forget the fact you're going to have to write the content, because there's actually there's already content out there. That's the secret, so which you can share with people. So the first thing to do when it comes to understanding what content to create is to really understand your personas, pain points, and challenges. And there are a number of ways to do this, which we'll share right now. So the first way to do that, and I believe it's the most effective, but can feel a little bit intimidating, it's actually to speak to your customers and to your prospects, or speak to the people within your target audience. Even more so than now, people are happy to help. And if you reach out to somebody and ask for 15 minutes of their time, or ask if they would share their opinion, everybody loves to share their opinion. I mean, Viveka and myself are here because Lisa asked us to share our opinion. So most people do. There's a little framework that I like to share as well when it comes to speaking to your prospects, and that is LAER. And what that stands for is to listen to the answers that they're giving you, but do that without making any assumptions, or don't go into the conversation with assumptions. The second one is A, which is acknowledge what they're saying and summarize it. So say it back to them. And when you say it back to them, sometimes you might get it wrong, and that's okay. And then they'll correct you. And then that further develops your understanding of the challenges and the pain points that they have. E stands for explore. And we may have children or nieces and nephews that ask why. Children are the best learners because they ask why several times, probably too many times in some
especially
occasions.
Right now. Why do I have to stay inside? Exactly.
But why? But by asking those whys and asking and not taking the first answer on the value, and really trying to dig into, well, I need to generate leads, might be a question. Sorry, it might be an answer. So you'd ask, well, why? Well, so that we can generate revenue. Why? And it feels like it's quite a basic question, but you'll unearth some really good nuggets of information or words and phrases that you can use throughout your profile, making it more buyer-centric, which is what Viveka was mentioning before. And then lastly, respond, but only respond when you've explored the above fully. So you really need to make sure that you've listened, you've acknowledged, you've explored, and then you can respond. Resist the temptation of jumping in and giving your opinion or answering a question whilst they're still talking, because you'll get more out of the conversations with them. Now, if that's too much, or if that feels a bit too daunting, that's completely fine. You can always start with reading the job descriptions of your personas, because every job description will say what the core objective of the role is, what the key responsibilities are, and usually how they will be measured. And that's pretty much their challenges and likely to be some of the pain points that they'll be facing at the time. And another source, again, without going directly to the customers or your audiences, to explore forums and Q&A sites like Quora, because a lot of people will ask questions there. And if you're targeting that particular audience, you'll find the questions that they're asking. There's loads of Slack communities nowadays as well, which you can go through the threads and have a look at the common questions that are being asked. And Viveka, I think you mentioned LinkedIn Jobs as well.
Yeah. I was just popping that in chat. Yeah, you can actually go, well, first of all, of course, you want to look at your buyer's profile, which may or may not give you the information that you want. But Mark made an excellent point. And actually, I haven't thought about this in years, so I'm so glad you brought it up, because I'm like, yes, of course. What's so cool is you can just go into jobs on LinkedIn and type in the title and, you know, the location and the type of company or industry, and a bunch of jobs will populate. And you're not looking for a job, but, you know, to Mark's point, there will be an outline of what that job is. And so that will give you, at the very least, talking points so you can speak in their language, which helps with that KLT factor. You know, it all comes back to that KLT, like, because they'll know that you know what they need, or at least who they are, and maybe have an idea of what they need. And the listening part is so important, and it's something I'm really bad at.
I think we're all guilty. We're all guilty of jumping in too early. And Viveka, it might be worth mentioning, you can actually save job alerts, can't you, for particular jobs?
Yeah, absolutely. So don't think about LinkedIn Jobs as just for job seekers, right? You can absolutely do that. You can find the types of personas and job postings, and then, yeah, you can save them. Now, mind you, LinkedIn's going to think you're looking for a job, so it's going to continue to send you alerts for jobs like that, but that's okay, because what it's doing is feeding you information about your buyer and what might be shifting in the industry itself. You know, now we're not calling people sales people, we're calling them account execs, and everything's an account exec, an AE, right? And so it helps to actually, in a weird way, keep you up to date with what's happening in the job industry.
Certainly, and one of the things that I do with these job descriptions is I save them as a saved alert, and every Friday I have a calendar appointment that just after lunch, when I'm starting to wind down and catch up on some admin, and, you know, they perhaps don't have many sales calls in the afternoon, I'll go through and read some of these job descriptions and spend 10-15 minutes. And one of the reasons why I do this is that when I'm having conversations in the future, I can reference the things that I've seen in those responsibilities changing. And you could almost paraphrase what you've learned and then test the assumption of your learning with the prospects. So a lot of people are a bit worried about not knowing what to say, or not really knowing how they can hold the conversation with their personas. But you can actually come across like you know what you're talking about just by asking a clever question. And I think that's key as well.
Absolutely. I love that.
So you might be thinking, okay, I've understood the challenges. I've found different ways. I've spoken to a few customers. I've read job descriptions, and I've looked at Quora. But now you need to create the content. And there's three main ways that I think of content. You can curate content. So you can go and have a look to see what other maybe non-competing companies that serve the same audience as you, What are they writing about? And would it be worth sharing that with your audience? And you could take that a step further and actually add some commentary to that content and say why you think it's valuable. I recently did that with it was a 30-page ebook on email templates, and I kind of gave my commentary and I said number 7 and number 9 are by far my favorite because they focus more on the customer rather than actually on the product that they're pitching. So it just gave two sentences or 3 sentences, and that added additional value to that content. The second way that you can create the content is actually to do it yourself and write that content yourself. And I personally struggle with writing content. I'm much more prefer speaking and talking in formats like this, and then actually repurposing these webinars, which actually moves on to the third way. And it's a strategy that I've been using with great success recently, and it's actually interviewing people who have overcome the challenges or help overcome those challenges. And I'll give 2 examples of where I've done that successfully for 2 different brands. One of the companies I'm involved with, they focus on e-commerce companies and they help them with their live chat and customer support. However, live chat e-commerce companies are looking to increase revenue most of the time. They're looking to increase their average basket size. They're looking to increase repeat customers coming back. Now, if they have more traffic, they're going to need more live chat support. So that's great for the company that I'm helping out at the moment. But I don't want to create self-serving content. I actually want to create content that helps the e-commerce companies. So we reached out to 2 agencies and 2 consultants that help grow e-commerce companies, and ask them to share how they do it. What are the strategies that are working? What are things that people need to be aware of for the rest of 2020, even though it's very unpredictable at the moment? But what we did was we interviewed them. We asked them the same 3 questions. We put all of those questions together in a blog post, and then we had the content we needed to then share with people on LinkedIn. And another example, just to give a bit more of an example, with TaskDrive, which is another company I'm involved in, they can sell to companies who have just raised a round of funding, a Series A, which is one of the earlier stages of funding that you can raise as a company. And we reached out to 3 sales consultants who help companies who have just raised a Series A, how they can build out their sales team and their sales process. And we then asked them 3 questions. We recorded the video and we edited the content together. So we're answering questions, we're providing really, really valuable content, but don't tell anyone I'm not actually creating the content. I'm just asking the smart questions. And
exactly.
Yeah.
That's our ninja trick. Yeah, we've actually got 2 podcasts at Ingress. So we've got Sales Focus and Marketing Focus. And the Sales Focus, we interview CEOs, VPs of sales, CSOs, and our marketing, we interview CEOs and CMOs. And guess what our 2, top buyer personas or prospects are? CEOs, CMOs, CSOs of medium to large size companies. And there's nothing like getting on with either our CMO or our CEO, Mario or Bernie, for 45 minutes to an hour, right? Where we're asking them, of course, about everything they're going through and their solutions and what they do. But yeah, we're creating podcasts out of it. And from that, we're pulling out quotes, and it's a win-win situation all the way. But it's not like they're going to refuse our phone call in the future. And we're like, hey, have you considered a digital sales transformation training for your company, right? So it's a great way to create those conversations. And podcasts are great. Mark knows podcasts are great for doing that. But if podcasts seem a little bit too far out of your reach for right now, you can absolutely just call them on the phone and say, hey, I'm going to write an article about, or a blog post about, or I'd love to do a quick interview with you on Zoom and, share it with my audience. And so you don't have to be as sophisticated as having a whole podcasting platform in order to start using this tool.
Yeah. And going back to the point of most people are helpful. Oftentimes people are busy, and please don't confuse a no as never. It's just no right now. And you can always say, okay, I appreciate now might not be a right time, but when things free up for you in your calendar, please do let me know, because I'd really value, and so would my audience would value, your experience and expertise. And Viveka, you wanted to share some best practices for sharing this content. So you've created a beautiful looking blog post on your blog. What do you do next to share that on LinkedIn or to share that content?
Yeah. And I think it's better, rather than talking about it, let me share my screen again. So whether you have, and let me actually pull up the post about this, whether you've got a video, a podcast, a blog post, a YouTube video, if you're going to take the time to share it on LinkedIn, the important content, I guess, you want to share natively. So number one is you want to make sure that you're sharing at least some content 3 to 5 times a week natively. Now, I'm a big fan of Agorapulse and Hootsuite and Everyone Social and all of those great social sharing tools. Don't get me wrong, I love them. But to get more visibility and engagement on your posts, you want to post natively, which simply means, going to the LinkedIn homepage, going to the LinkedIn homepage and clicking on share a post. I'm not talking about articles, which is right here, just literally sharing a post and then sharing an image, uploading a native video, sharing a document, sharing a link. So that's what I'm talking about. But what you want it to look like, we call the anatomy of a post. And the first thing you want to do is address your buyer, not all the time, but at least some of the times. And some folks are like, but I want to help everyone on LinkedIn, or I want to help everyone with a computer, and I want to help everyone with a face. But, to Mark's point earlier, or I don't know if you made this point or not, but I'm sure you would, the more focused you can get on your buyer, your exact buyer, and what their points of pain are, the more likely you are to convert them. Trying to help everyone right now, it's actually too big of a market. You can't help everyone, so you better help the people that you are best at helping, your buyer persona. So address those folks right away. And then as they're scrolling through their LinkedIn feed, they're like, I'm a social seller, I'm a social marketer, or whatever it is that they are. And then share your asset. Like I said, native video, a link to your blog post, a link to your podcast, a case study, a checklist. You can upload documents. So a PowerPoint presentation, whatever it is, share your content, but then describe what that content is. Now, what's really cool about LinkedIn is they just started, and of course, I already clicked away from it, but they just started when people share blog posts, giving an estimated time to read. So when you look at someone's blog post, they're saying, 11-minute read or something like that. So that's kind of cool. So if it's going to be 11 minutes to read that post, you better tell them what's in it. And I like to, in some cases, just kind of condense the teaching points so that even if they don't click through to the video, in this case, they're going to understand the basics of what they need to know. Use emojis, understand your audience, like no, poop emojis for maybe engineers. So understand your audience, but use those emojis that'll draw the human eye as well. And then put a call to action, right? Whether it's, you can put 2 calls to action. Read the steps below and let me know what you think in comments, or click through to find out more about this and other resources, or whatever it is. But put that call to action in there. That will help engagement. And then use hashtags. We use one unique one, Vengresso Vids, Vengresso Pics, Vengresso Live, and then some more common ones, which will also potentially help you amplify your post. So whatever it is, and it doesn't even have to be your content. Like Mark said, you can curate somebody else's content, just, potentially not a competitor. And when you curate their content, you can still do this anatomy of a post with it. You want to mention them or their company, because then they or their company might amplify your post, which gets you even more visibility. And it helps to position you as a thought leader, as an advocate, even if you're not creating your own content. So I'll pop the link to this into chat, but that's one of the things that I recommend doing when sharing content. Not every day, but at least a few times a day. And take a look and see if that actually increases your visibility on LinkedIn. And by the way, it also works on Facebook too.
Certainly. And another thing to remember as well is that you can share your content more than once. So if you have a long piece of content, you can split it into different posts and share different parts of the post. So for example, if I'm asking 3 questions, then that's 3 versions of the same post that I can share, just with a different message and a different call to action. So don't be afraid of reusing content. And especially what you'll be able to see in LinkedIn is you'll see which content resonates the most with the audience, and you can make sure that you send, you can resend that content out again using a different sentence or a different title. So those are great tips, Viveka. Thank you so much for sharing those. I think a lot of people often struggle with, do I just paste in the URL to the post? Is that all I have to do?
Right.
So thank you for sharing those. But you know, there's more you can do with LinkedIn, which would like to share with you now. And that's really about actually taking an outbound approach now that you've got some content. And even this could be even used if you're curating the content. If you found a very, very good article and it's very relevant to the audience, and as Viveka says, to be as narrow as possible, because it just makes this part a lot easier. You can actually build a list of your buyer personas within LinkedIn, and then get ready to send them a message. And Viveka, there's LinkedIn search, and then there's almost like a deep search and Boolean searches, which I know you could talk about for hours, but
but I won't.
There's some tips here for search I think you can share as well.
Yeah. So what's really cool, and I'll share my screen again. What's really cool about LinkedIn search, right? So most people, because we're trained on Google, we're trained on Facebook, we're trained on Twitter, just to click in the search button here. But those results are meh. So if you're looking for a person or a job or content or companies or schools or groups or events, you want to click through. Now, most of the cases we're looking for a buyer persona. So we're going to click on people. And once we do that, we have an opportunity over here. And this is whether you got paid or free, doesn't matter. You want to go to your next step, which is all filters. And now the magic happens, right? I can sort by, this one's Matt. I'll talk about this one in just a second, but I can sort by my first level connections, my friends, my second level connection, my friends of friends. Once I start doing more search, even third level connections, people I share groups with. I can sort by location. I can sort by companies that they are working in or might be working in, companies they used to work in, certainly industries. This is a little bit limited, but anyway, some of the industries are covered. I can sort by the profile language. So, hey, here in the US, everything is American, but a lot of you on the call, Portuguese. I need to only speak to medium-sized businesses that are based in Portugal. Great. If you sort by profile languages that are Portuguese, it's going to give you a better result. Schools people went to, interests they might have, and then this one down here is a big one, title. And so if you've got a free account on LinkedIn, you've probably noticed about 1 week to 2 weeks into the month, LinkedIn's like, nope, you can't see anything more because it looks like you're using this for work. Like, duh, of course I am. But they want you to pay for, to see more views. The more focused and directed your searches are, the more quality connections you're going to find or quality leads you're going to find before that, stop, you got to pay for it comes up. So that's why you want to use, and I'm not even going to go into Boolean because that's a half hour at least on its own, but just using these fields will make a huge difference. And then if you've got like a super influencer, if you know Mark, if you know me, if you know Lisa, and we're connected on LinkedIn, you can even sort through my connections using all of these different tools. So it's really, there's a lot of good stuff and it's hidden. All the good stuff, by the way, on LinkedIn is actually hidden. So it's hidden under search and then people, 1 click, 2 click, and then filters, all filters. So 3 clicks to get there, but completely worth the time. And I'm actually going to put the link and you should bookmark it. So you don't have to go looking for it next time. That's another ninja trick. I bookmark a lot of the links so I don't have to go click, 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 click. I can just go to my bookmark and click through. So another ninja trick. All right, I'll stop sharing.
No worries. And I'm going to share my screen now because now that you've built the list of prospects or of people that you want to send a message to, now you can connect and send a message. Now, different industries, there are different numbers and there's different advice. I sell into quite a few, or I speak to and sell into lots of different industries. I know with sales and marketing people, I can just hit connect with no connection message, and I get around the same connection percentage rates than if I wrote a message. In other industries or varied industries, it's always better to send a personalized message. Or if it's not personalized to the individual, you can make it personalized to them as a persona, to them as their job title. And I'm just going to show a recent campaign that I'm running at the moment. And this is to promote some content that I produced for Speak on Podcasts. And what I'm doing is connecting with around 40 people a day. And I'm doing this manually rather than using a tool. There are tools out there, but it's just such a gray area and such a big risk, especially if you're doing this on behalf of other people, that I'd always say do it manually. And I send a message saying, and I copy and paste. So I am taking some shortcuts, but that is allowed. I say so myself anyway. And you can see the messages, hey, I recently published a guide that explains how consultants such as yourself can leverage podcast interviews to increase awareness and generate leads. Would you like me to send it over? No need to fill out a form either. So what I'm not doing here is I'm not putting the link in this post because they haven't asked for it. And because they haven't asked me for it, I don't want to assume that they're interested, because I know that generating leads and increasing brand awareness is a challenge for consultants, but I don't know whether Alexandra has this particular challenge at the moment. So I'm asking her permission if I could send her the guide, and it is a blog post. It's a 4,000 word guide that I put together. And you get responses like this: hey Mark, yeah, sure, thanks a lot. So I need to, after this call, I batch my time on LinkedIn, so it's always worth saving a block of time to batch through the activities that you need to do on LinkedIn. So I will be sending a response to Alex later, which is again another copy and paste of saying, I usually write the first bit as like, awesome to hear, Alex, or great news, or Alexandra, sorry. Here's a link to the guide, and then I will have a follow-up process in place, and we're going to come on to that follow-up bit in a second. But Viveka, I really love the PVC method and template that you have. So maybe you could share that.
Yeah, you so perfectly modeled our methods. So it's like a mind meld here. Yeah, we have what we call the PVC method, which is personalize, add value, and then put in a call to action. And I love what Mark does with the asking permission first. So, when people say, well, I personalize my invites and it doesn't work. And I'm like, well, what are you saying? And it's basically, hi, buy my stuff. Right? Mm-hmm. You wouldn't do that in real life. So why in the world would you do it on LinkedIn? So you don't want to be like, hi, let's connect. And now you can totally buy my stuff. I mean, so that's usually why personalizing invitations doesn't work. But Mark modeled, personalizing it. Hey. And, sometimes, hey, Alexandra, and then adding value. And his call to action is, let me know, if you're interested. Right. So PVC right there, but he's not forcing. And I like that. Actually, I usually add the link too, but I love that asking permission piece. So that's whether you're inviting someone to connect, whether you're following up with a connection, whether you're just sending messages. This works on email, it works on Facebook messages, it works on text, it works on LinkedIn messages, but that PVC, personalized value, and then putting that call to action. We got a playbook. I'll pop it into chat for everybody.
Amazing. And it's important. It's a really good point you make there, because this isn't just applicable for LinkedIn. The work I do with Task Drive, I advise several companies on their outbound sales strategy, and LinkedIn is just one avenue or one channel for that. Outbound email is another one. And for months, I've been saying, do not ask for a demo. Do not ask for 30 minutes of a time, because they're not interested. And it's like walking up to a stranger and asking them to go to your house. It's complete. You wouldn't do it in real life. So don't do it in an email. And one of the things that I've seen working really well across the portfolio of the companies that I work with is to ask if they're interested in finding out more, or ask saying, Lisa, would this be of interest to you? Or is this something that you're currently concerned about or working on or focused on at the moment? Now, oftentimes in sales, you will be told to not ask closed questions where somebody could reply yes or no. The only time you can ask, or you should ask closed questions, is when you're attempting to reach a conclusion. So at the end of the deal, that's when you can ask a closed question. But in a cold email, even in your first message, I'm an advocate of asking a closed question because they often get a reply. And what a lot of people don't realize that in sales, it's just as important to qualify out people as it is to qualify in. And it's even more important if you don't have a lot of inbound leads or you don't have a lot of sales conversations, it's even more important to qualify people out. And by that, I mean, if they're not a good fit, if they're not your ideal customer profile or the ideal buyer, because often they'll cause more headaches than is worth selling to them and bringing them on. And I've learned from experience myself. But the other, I guess, a ninja hack of doing this is that by asking are you interested, you're likely to increase the number of replies you get from your emails. And when it comes to email deliverability these days, reply rates are so important. If you send out a lot of emails and you get no replies, then the spam filters take the assumption that your email isn't of interest and therefore is likely to be spam. And it reduces the chances of your emails being delivered in the future. So a slight tip that's away from LinkedIn, but always ask if they're interested and just aim for that reply.
100%. You know, my friend Andrea Waltz and her husband, his name I can't remember, sorry, wrote a great book, little teeny tiny book. Actually, I met her at Bob Berg's event like 10 years ago, called Go for No. And it's so important, to Mark's point. You know, qualifying people out might be more important than qualifying people in, because 80-20 rule, you don't want to spend 80% of your time on that 20%. And man, trust your intuition. If your gut is saying, even if they look like the perfect buyer and have all the money, if your gut is telling you, no, please try. Every time I've gone against my intuition, it has literally cost me money, time, relationships. Do it.
Certainly. And you know, with all of this outbound, so it takes a little bit of planning to have this in place, and you definitely want to make sure that you've got a message to follow up. So I'm following up people. I tried to find one just as Viveka was talking, but the message I'm sending out to people to follow up with them is saying, you might have missed the message with the connection request. So I just wanted to reshare it with you. I've had a lot of people saying it's a great guide, and I've had 500 people. I've sent this blog post to 500 people so far. So putting in a bit of social proof. I'm not making them feel bad that they haven't replied, but oftentimes when you do accept a connection request, you don't always see the connection message, or it often gets missed and you don't go back to it. So make sure that you follow up. And one of the things that you can follow up with, especially if you've had a positive engagement or a positive response with somebody, you can ask them, you know, are they currently experiencing that pain point that your content solves, or your solution solves? And that can be a really, really good way to very softly determine whether they are somebody that you should continue throughout your sales process with.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, guilt selling is not a good idea anyway, but certainly during these disruptive times. I mean, it cracks me up when it cracks me up / annoys me when, you know, you get those LinkedIn invitations like, your website's really bad, we can make it better. Your LinkedIn profile is really bad. Like, really? I wrote both the books on it. You can make it better, you know, like, and this guilt, this trying to shame people into buying your product or service, like, don't do it. That's all.
No, don't. And I think the bait and switch as well. I think that's another one as well. It's just like, hey, do you have 5 minutes to talk about, I'd like to ask you a question about my website. And then you're then trying to sell them a new website design. Like the bait and switch just doesn't work. And again, going back to the times we're in, the things that people are going through, people don't want to be sold to, but they love to buy. So be that person that they love to buy from. And I think that's I think we're close to the end almost. I think we've got a few more minutes. There's another thing that you know, other than following up and asking if they're experiencing the pain points, then you can also repurpose the content on LinkedIn. And as we mentioned, there's lots of different snippets of information that you can take from your blog post. But you can also ask the people that have read the content, what did they learn? What did they like the most? Or would they add anything in addition to the blog post that you said? And again, you're going above and beyond to build that relationship with somebody and ask their opinion. And I think I've said it 3 times now, everybody loves to give their opinion. So by asking them for their opinion, you can actually use that content and share that for future posts as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that is the 7-step process. So I'll recap very quickly. So first of all, you need to understand your ideal customer profiles and your personas. You need to learn where they spend time online. You then need to create content or curate content and just add a little commentary to that content. You then need to build your list using LinkedIn search and those additional filters that Viveka shared. You need to then share blog posts or the content that you do create as on your profile, but then also reach out to people via messaging and connecting and sending messages to them. Follow up with those individuals as well, and don't be afraid of sending a few follow-ups. And then also repurpose the content and repurpose your learnings from the conversations that you're having with people. And that is the 7-step process that we put together.
I missed one.
Oh no! Oh, were you writing as we went through?
Yeah, I missed one.
Okay.
You said it, but I couldn't type fast enough.
Understand, learn. I'm trying to look at both screens. Where are we? Build your lists, I think. Have you got that one?
Oh, maybe.
Which one? Oh, list. Yeah, no, I missed that one.
That's okay. That's just between 2 and 3. So 2.5, build your lists. and that's it.
Perfect.
Nice. Well done. Super good. So much relevant and interesting content. That's great. I wanted to, open quickly the comment box for everyone. Maybe somebody has a question. We'll give you a minute or so to type them in and ask Viveka and Mark. In the meantime, maybe I have a question. What kind of content would you say works best to post on LinkedIn as in point number 3 here in your list, create or curate content? Is it a blog post or video, or what kind of, I don't know, what kind of content works best?
It changes. The best type of content to post on LinkedIn is whatever they just released, because they're going to give it more, algorithm juice. So like some folks overseas are going to be getting, well, overseas to me, locally to you, are going to be getting stories, LinkedIn stories. And so definitely you're going to want to try those out, because LinkedIn's going to be like, ooh, it's a new toy, let's show everybody. When LinkedIn came out with articles, they were getting 10 to 100,000 views. Now I get like 100. When native video first came out, that got amplified. All my videos got between 10 and 50,000 views. Now I'm like lucky if I get 1,000. Right now, the latest thing, it's not that new, but I don't know. LinkedIn's weird. If you upload a multi-page PDF or a multi-page PowerPoint presentation, it's a little stickier. And so LinkedIn is amplifying those a little bit. So yeah, if you've got a PowerPoint that you're sharing anyway, don't use SlideShare, just upload it natively. If you've got an ebook, upload it natively and let people kind of scroll through it using the anatomy of a post. But that seems to be what's getting the most activity right now.
Nice. Cool. We actually have one more question from Enos. He says, what makes a content viral? How do we manage the virality and convert it into leads?
Okay, I think I can start maybe the answer for this one. I think what makes content viral is content that resonates with your audience. There really isn't any point sitting around in a room and saying, okay, we need to create a piece of viral content. What you should be asking yourself is, we need to create something that's insanely valuable for our customers. And a recent example of this is, there's a company called Candor, and they help people in tech negotiate higher salaries. With all of the coronavirus going on and all of the effects that had on companies freezing their recruitment, but then also companies doubling down. So e-learning companies and e-commerce companies were doubling down on the technology they needed to have. So then therefore the tech talent was high in demand. What Candor did was they aggregated, and TaskDrive actually helped them with this. They aggregated all of the companies that were hiring and all of the companies that were freezing. And we, as TaskDrive, we went in and added in the links to the job opportunities, to the careers pages for all of those. There was 8,000 companies that they had that were either hiring or freezing. That went viral. They've had millions of page views to a company who were doing all the normal marketing before, but that just completely took off because it was insanely valuable and incredibly relevant to their target audience at a time where they needed it. And I've never broken down the how to build a viral piece of content, but I think that is quite a good summary, if I say so myself.
I love that. I love that. And what I would say, make sure that you keep an eye on the engagement, because there are now a lot of the engagement will be like, yay, great, this sucks, this is awesome. But there will be people in your feed, no matter where that viral content is viral, whether it's on YouTube or LinkedIn or Facebook, there will be people in your feed who are buyers. And because they commented on your feed, at least in LinkedIn, this is true, you can then create a conversation with them. So creating viral content is awesome, but in and of itself, like, other than, the top of the funnel, creating more awareness in your company, who cares? What you want to do is take it the next step to where you're actually starting to have those conversations with the buyers who are actually engaged with your viral content. That's what's important. Imho.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, of course. One quick last question. We have a minute left. So it says from Inda, he says, if we get stuck with no responses, how many times should we do follow-ups?
Yeah, really good question. Depends how brave you are. I've been doing this for years now. I've got quite thick skin. The worst that's ever happened is somebody said, please stop messaging me. My rules are just always continue to add value. If the first message didn't resonate with them, maybe it was the topic or the subject, so try a different one. And the last thing that I've been doing quite a lot recently is checking their LinkedIn profile, seeing how active they are. If they're active and they've got a full profile, then I'll send more follow-ups. If they don't have a profile photo and they haven't engaged with any content, I'll skip them and go to someone else.
Yeah, one of the, we use Sales Navigator, which is LinkedIn's premium account. And don't bother with it if you're not going to use it, basically. But one of the amazing filters on Sales Nav is you can filter your search by people who are active on LinkedIn. So you don't spend a lot of time trying to nurture relationships with people who, to Mark's point, are never on LinkedIn. So that's kind of a nifty little thing. Or you can manually check through, just like Mark said, check through and see if they're engaged. And if they're not, that's fine. But that's another reason we recommend the omni-channel approach, which is, if you've got it, of course, message them. If the message doesn't work, you might try an email. If you got their phone number, most people are using just their mobile devices right now. So if you've got their phone number, then you can text them. So, they're also try multiple times and try multiple channels.
Nice.
Definitely.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I think with that, we've come to the end. Thank you, everyone who has been online throughout the whole webinar. And special thanks, of course, to Mark and Viveka. I think they also have lots of great, other webinars and podcasts they have done. I'm always stalking their pages to get some inspiration for my own company and what I do in my own business. So yeah, thank you so much. And we're running a lot of other webinars as well with DMSS. So if you're interested in future webinars, you can head over to dmss.io and sign up for the newsletter, so you'll always get the news about new things we're doing. And yeah, with that, I hope, of course, Vivica and Mark, I'm gonna hopefully see you in Bali in November.
Yes.
Yay.
And maybe a lot of other people as well. So all the best for you, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Lisa. Cheers,
Bye,
Viveka.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
See ya.